Hello everyone, welcome back, and welcome to the third episode of the Barca Global Podcast. And what I want to talk about today is the comments that Deco made, because he talks a little bit about the Nico Williams situation, a little bit about Ter Stegen. He also said that a center back was going to be leaving. So honestly, he opened up a lot today. He gave a lot of important information to the news today. So I just wanted to go through and talk about every single comment that he made, because I think it talks a lot about the plans that Barca have this summer. And the first thing I want to talk about is the goalkeeping situation, because I think Deco was very blunt when he was asked about this. He said, I don't talk to Ter Stegen. I'm the sporting director. That's not my job. That's the job of the coach. So no, I do not talk with Ter Stegen. But then another comment that he made later on, he said, a contract does not guarantee you a starting spot. And in my opinion, that is implied at Ter Stegen, because Barcelona, they made it very clear. They had a gap in that position. That's why they signed Joan Garcia. That's also why they brought in Szczesny, well, obviously because of Ter Stegen's injury. But they brought in Szczesny, and then they renewed his contract. And that's what Deco just said, that Szczesny has already confirmed that he will be renewing at Barcelona until 2027. So that means that Joan Garcia has just been brought into the club, that Barca invested 20 to 25 million in him, and then they also renewed Szczesny's contract. What does that mean for Ter Stegen? If he wants to be a starter at Barcelona, I don't know where he fits in. And especially right before the 2026 World Cup with Germany, if he does want to be starting for the national team, I don't think that he would be sitting on the bench. So does that mean that he's going to leave? I don't know. I think Deco's response was very blunt, though. He was not beating around the bush. He went straight to the point and said, just because you have a contract here, just because you've been at the club for a long time, that does not guarantee you a starting spot. So the goalkeeping situation is going to be interesting. I don't know if that means Ter Stegen is going to leave, but I just don't see him being a starter for Barcelona this season. And then another comment that he made was about Nico Williams, and it wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it did kind of confirm what we've already been hearing, is that he said Nico Williams, like other players, wants to join the club. He's making an effort to join Barcelona this summer, which, maybe it kind of throws Nico Williams under the bus to Bilbao fans, which I know we just saw that today. I made a video on TikTok about it, that Nico Williams, he had a mural in Bilbao. It was alongside him and Iñaki Williams, his brother, and it had been vandalized by Bilbao fans. They basically spray painted over his face, and they put words like, whether you stay or leave, you have still lost respect, just because he's talking with Barcelona. So I don't think Deco's comments are really going to help that scenario, because he basically confirmed that Nico Williams has been making an effort to join the club. But that's not really surprising given all the reports about him potentially joining Barcelona this summer. But I do think that is positive news for Barcelona, because it confirms that Nico Williams is making an effort to join the club. So if Barcelona are able to make this happen, and that's what Deco said, he said that we're going to try and make a signing happen like other players. If we want them to join, we're going to do everything we can to try and sign them and make sure that the finances work. So nothing groundbreaking there, but it did confirm about the Nico Williams to Barcelona situation. And then another comment that Deco made, he said that one center back is going to leave the club this summer because we have one too many in that position. And in my opinion, that was a pretty interesting thing for him to say, but he also confirmed that that center back that was going to leave was not going to be Ronald Araujo. And so you're just going down the ranks and you're saying, okay, I know for a fact Pau Cubarsí, with absolute certainty, is going to be playing at Barcelona next season. Now it seems, well, it's likely that Araujo is. And also, Inigo Martinez is definitely going to stay at the club. Just renewed his contract coming off a great season. So you think the most likely player to leave the club this summer would be Andreas Christensen, which, unfortunately for him, he missed such a large portion of the season. It didn't seem like he was going to miss that long. He was maybe only going to be out for a couple months, and then it just kept getting pushed back. He was supposed to be back in January. Again, kept getting pushed back, and I think he maybe made 3 appearances this season. And I think every single time he did play, he was good. And I think even in Xavi's first season, when Christensen was at the club, or his first full season, Christensen did very well. He was such an important part of the way that Barca played. But those injury problems, it's difficult for Barcelona. And I think with Pau Cubarsí and Inigo Martinez having such great seasons, and Araujo staying at the club, and even Eric Garcia coming in and actually being an important piece of the team, even though he's not really playing in that center back position, recently at least, it does leave room for one of those center backs to leave, and the most likely one would be Christensen. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind if he stays at the club. It kind of depends on his contract. If it is a crazy salary, then yeah, I would understand Barca trying to kind of cut their losses there and just trying to ask him to leave if he's not going to get that many minutes. But in my opinion, with how many games you're expected to play this season, it's not a bad idea to keep another quality center back. But at the same time, if he's not really going to be available, it's difficult to keep him at the club. So Christensen, I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves the club this summer. I do think he's quality when he's able to play, but he's already kind of fourth in the pecking order. It seems like he was actually going to be third, especially at the end of last season. But with Araujo being confirmed to stay at the club, it does seem like Christensen would be the one to leave. And I feel like Deco basically confirmed that. He was also asked about Frankie de Jong, and he said, "This is the Frankie that we like to see. We want him to stay at the club." And there are no surprises there, because I know for a couple years there were some rough times for Frankie, and maybe some Barca fans were saying because of his high salary, because we've been hearing crazy numbers about how much he was getting paid, it seemed like Barca fans did want him to leave. And I kind of understood it because, he was one of the only players with some market value, and if Barca were in a bad financial situation, if someone's getting paid $30 million a year and they have $100 million value on him, or even like $120 million, you would think about potentially selling him. But I just don't think that's the case. I think Frankie was so important this season, and he's back to his best now. I do think he went from kind of being a fringe player to forcing his way into the starting lineup because of how good he was on the ball, his composure, and just being able to work it out of tight areas. I think it was so important with the way that Hansi Flick wanted to play. And I also think him and Pedri together in the middle, it kind of proved to Barca fans that you didn't really need a true defensive midfielder. And going into next season with Casado coming back, Marc Bernal hopefully coming back, it will be interesting to see if Frankie's role is somewhat changed. But I do think he's going to be a very important piece of Barcelona next year. So no surprises there that he is going to stay, and I'm all for it because Frankie had such a good year. And then he was also asked about Ansu Fati, and I don't know what happened with Deco, but he was very straightforward, very blunt with his responses, at least kind of the quotes that we saw. Maybe they were potentially taken out of context. I didn't watch the entire interview, but he was asked about Ansu Fati, and he basically said, yeah, he's going to leave the club this summer because at his age, he just can't sit on the bench. And I really don't know how many appearances he had for Barca. It was very limited. It might have been less than 5. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but he was not a very prominent figure in Barcelona's team this year. And I think Hansi Flick, especially towards the end when Barca's title was wrapped up and Ansu Fati was still not getting minutes, you just felt like, yeah, this is not a player that Hansi Flick really counts on. And you don't know what we see in training, right? There have been some reports that Fati's just not working as hard as other players, and if that is the case, then I understand other players getting minutes over him. I mean, that's completely understandable, and I trust what Hansi Flick has done because he was so good this year. He transformed Barcelona into one of the best teams in the world, so I'm not going to doubt if one player is not getting minutes. It's being reported that Ansu Fati is going to leave on loan, which I think is what Deco said, that he wouldn't leave on a permanent deal, which I think is good because if we get to see the old Ansu Fati, that would be really nice to have in your team. And Deco also made a good point that the way people talk about Ansu Fati, it's as if he's 30 years old. He is still 23. He still has time on his side. And it's just unfortunate to have those injuries at such a young age, but you can bounce back from that. He still has time to recover and get back to where we saw Ansu Fati at previously. So I'd love if we see that. It's being reported that he's going to leave on loan to AS Monaco, which I think would be an interesting place to kind of try and revive some of his form. I think Paul Pogba is also joining that club, so that'd be really awesome to see, to be honest. But yeah, I don't want to give up on Ansu Fati, but I just think at Barcelona, at this current point in time, especially if they're going to bring Nico Williams in, he's going to get even less minutes than he did this season, which is crazy because he didn't get barely any. So yeah, I think it's the right idea for his career at 100% to leave the club, see if he can get something going somewhere else, and then hopefully try and rejoin the club at some point if it does work out. But yeah, a lot of important news kind of coming out, and as I said, Deco was very assertive in his answers and didn't kind of leave anything up in the air. Like, he was very blunt and straightforward, which, to be honest, I did like to see, even though with the Nico Williams situation, I think that's kind of throwing him under the bus. But yeah, anyways, thank you all so much for watching my video. I really do appreciate it. Hope you all have been great, and I hope to continue to make more videos. And thank you all so much for the support. I really do appreciate it. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Visca Barca, and I will see you all later. Peace.